Now I'm going to talk to you about seeds, the size of seeds, and why we plant different kinds of seeds the way we do. There's two things to consider when you're planting a vegetable. The first thing is the size of the seed, and the second thing is the way the plant grows. I'm going to give you some examples. This is the seed of a zucchini, squash. These are seeds from a carrot. These are seeds from a brassica, a member of the broccoli family. All the seeds from the broccoli family look like that, whether they're cabbages, kohlrabi, broccoli, or rab, or cauliflower. They all look like that. Little black round ones. This is a bean seed. And this is a pea. Now when we plant these, we have two things to consider. The depth we're going to plant them at, and how the plant is going to grow. The depth you plant a seed at would be normally 1/2 of the width of the seed. So under the ground. So if I have this seed here, I want to plant it about that far under the ground, because that's about 1/2 of its width in depth. Right? Now, what about these little guys? What we're going to do is we're going to plant them about 1/4 of an inch deep to make sure they just don't get washed out and rolled all over the place. And we're going to try to plant them under a very light soil. And by a very light soil, that's where we're going to take the soil that we take off the top, and we're going to mix vermiculite in to make it lighter. Why are we going to do that? Because if you take soil and you put it on top of a very small seed, and the seed grows a root and a shoot, and it's trying to break up, and you've had a lot of water and rain, the soil might compact down. It might form like a roof, like a tile roof over that little tiny seed, and it's going to have trouble pushing out, right? But if you mix vermiculite or compost into the soil and make the soil lighter, the seed will be able to penetrate upwards. Now, our other consideration, of course, is the way the plant is going to grow. Now, this pea is going to become a vine. It's going to need a support. It's going to need a trellis like this, right? This bean, some beans grow on trellises, pole beans grow on trellises, but this one is a bush bean. It's going to grow into a little shrub-like thing. But it's not going to actually need physical support to grow, but it's going to get about as big as your head, or a little bigger, right? This seed, which is yet again almost the same size and weight, this is a squash. This plant is going to get as big as a bushel basket. These 3 seeds are the same size. They're going to grow in 3 entirely different ways. So you have to plant them in a place that's going to allow for their growth. Now, The same thing with this seed. This is a carrot seed. This carrot is going to grow down into the ground, into the soil, right? So what you need to worry about is what's below that. If you have soil that you haven't turned over like this and put some perlite into and mixed to the depth of a pitchfork so that it's light and fluffy, when that seed starts to grow and tries to form a carrot, it's going to hit lumps and bumps and rocks. And what you're going to get is some weird thing that looks like an octopus underground. When you go to pull it up, you're going to get a whole bunch of little stringy things that might make calamari for a vegetarian, but they're not going to make a carrot for your salad, right? On the other hand, the broccoli rabe, the rapa, is going to grow above the soil, above the ground. So what you need to worry about is not so much how deep you've put the soil underneath, how deep you've churned it up, but you need to worry about just the fact that this tiny little seed needs to be moist, but be able to break through that soil, right? So you can plant this if you've only turned the soil over for a couple of inches. And just make sure the top layer is nice and friable and loose so it can break through. But the carrot, if you haven't turned it under deeply, you're going to get scungili for vegans, right? There you go. And we have root crops, we have things that grow upwards, and those things that grow upwards are going to be of a certain size. They're either going to be vining or not vining. And that's basically what you have to think of when you're planting. Now, also spacing is important, and that comes into the size of the plant, what I've just spoken about. If the plant is going to be growing downwards and it's about this big around, you need to give it about that much room and this much space to grow. If the plant is going to grow upwards and it's going to be this big around, you need to allow that when it's mature, it has this much space, like a tomato or a zucchini. I find that growing tomatoes and zucchinis and eggplants like we have over there in large nursery pots is very effective. The plants perform well. You can pay individual attention to them, and you give them enough space. If you try to put them in a raised bed mixed in with a lot of other plants, a lot of the time they'll crowd them out and shade them out, and the other plants won't do as well. So my personal recommendation from my experience is that I grow tomatoes, squash, quite often broccoli, those big plants in big pots like that. And I grow carrots and rabe and things that you grow in clumps like lettuce in raised beds like this. All right? Now, all we need to do is plant some seeds.
Okay, are you a proponent of taking the seed and putting it directly into the raised bed, or is it better or advantageous to go ahead and start the seeds in some type of seed starter kit and plant a seedling?
Well, most of those questions are usually answered by the seed itself, and you can usually get instructions on the back of your seed package whether it should be direct seeded or not. But on the whole, any large seed can be direct seeded, and I recommend direct seeding for beans or peas. There are some seeds that do not take transplanting very well at all. Beans are one of these. They don't take transplanting well. Corn, nasturtiums don't take, and nasturtiums, by the way, are a really good vegetable, and the leaves and the flowers can be used in salad. They are related to watercress, and they taste like pepper. But a lot of seeds do very well if seeded in something like a planter or a flower box and then transplanted. Lettuces, anything in the Brassica family, which includes any large member of the Brassica family, which includes broccoli, cabbage, things like that, things that have a really tiny seed when you plant them, but are going to grow to a size where they're going to take up a space about the size of your head. All of these are best off seeded into a flower box or planter and then transplanted to the correct spacing. Now, the exception to the brassicas would be broccoli rabe, which is grown, it has the same type of seed, but it's grown as a dense cover crop that you come through and you snip off all the tops with scissors, and it regrows again and again and again. So, like arugula, or chicory. So that is best seeded directly. But most of the heading cabbages, or that kind of thing, are best seeded in groups. Another thing is like the seeds are so small on carrots that you're better off direct seeding them. You can't transplant root crops very well. They usually fork, but after you direct seed them directly into the bed, you're going to have to thin them. If you don't thin them, they entwine underground, and none of them are going to achieve a good size. You have to be a little bit ruthless and thin them, but the thinnings, if you pull them up carefully and do it early enough before they get entwined, the little thinnings are really good in salads. They're quite tasty and nice. And they have a good carrot taste, so give that a go.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Vegetables and stuff like that.
Here, like this one has some very good instructions about
So you say
planting depth and that kind of thing.
Seed has good instructions, tells you the zone and things like that.
Right, and
Okay.
you can also look it up, of course, on the internet, or any basic vegetable gardening book is going to have this kind of information.
Where's a good place to get seeds?
A good place to get seeds is on the internet,
Okay.
because most of our local stores only stock fresh vegetable seeds in spring, which is not when we want to plant them. We want to plant them in late October and early November, when you can't find them in stores and they're busy selling Christmas decorations. So the best thing to do is to order them on the internet, or get a catalog from a seed company and keep it around and put in, if you don't use the internet, you can get a catalog from a seed company and put in your orders in August or September, and get your seeds in, and they're going to arrive in September and October, and you'll be ready to get started on your vegetables. Florida used to be the home of winter vegetables for the entire United States, because this is when we grow the vegetables they grow everywhere else in the country in summer. And that has not changed. This is when they grow best.